Today's video I have titled To Clarify about Ryan Gromlovits, Part 1, and this is from a conversation that I had on Facebook Messenger. So for context, someone had messaged me on Facebook Messenger asking me some questions about the videos I had been posting, and they brought up Ryan. I guess from what I said about ways that he might have sinned against me in the past, because I was kind of vague, she was wondering, like, how bad was it? Because I guess when I don't clarify, people's thoughts and imaginations can run wild. And they might imagine things to be worse than what they were. So I don't want to make Ryan's actions appear worse than they may have been, so I'm going to share openly what I told that person privately. So I responded to that person's questions privately in that conversation, and I'm going to share it openly in case other people are wondering the same thing, having watched those videos and what I said about Ryan. And I have this listed as part 1 because my plan is to make a part 2 that walks through the conversation more thoroughly and kind of points out the manipulation, areas of manipulation that are found in this person's speech pattern. They might not even be aware that they are manipulative in these areas. It might not be their intent. It might not have been their motive, but they do have manipulative practices in their speech, and they might not even be aware of it. So, yep, so to kind of maybe help other people grow in wisdom and discernment, I thought it would be a good opportunity to use that text as like an example. I cut the person's face out and I cut their name out. Their face and their name, I didn't recognize it. They do sound a little bit familiar, but I cut off their face and their name. Yeah. So they reached out May 5th in the evening time. Hi, I've been watching your video. I'm going to go through it quickly because I just want to clarify the things about Ryan. Been watching your videos. Sorry you're in such distress over Cornerstone. I truly believe it's in your best interest to take the videos down. I don't think they're accomplishing what you were hoping. That's cool that you've been watching. What is it you think I'm hoping to accomplish? Well, I'm not sure what your goal is. And you can pause and read through these more thoroughly, but I'll kind of go to the points where I make comments on. These are some other messages. These are some other messages. So, they said I didn't want to come off rude, so I wanted to message you privately rather than comment on YouTube. Still not seeing where the problem is with the videos. And then they said, I mean this in the most sincere way and don't mean to offend, but from an outsider who doesn't know you, you come off as a little obsessed with the church and specifically Ryan, almost like you were his ex-girlfriend. And you can read the rest of their message there. I highlighted this part because I'm trying to become quicker with like wit and trying to be like funny. I always come up with like funny sayings after the fact, and then I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I should have said that. I'm trying to be quicker. Depending on who the person is, if I'm on the phone with Jacqueline, my sister, I think I'm like, I don't miss a beat. Our conversations are, I don't know, they've been good. I've been getting, hitting a bunch of like on point references. So I highlight this part because there's something, there's a way in which I wish I responded to this and I didn't. And then when I was looking at the text, I was like, ooh, that would have been good. So in response to that, almost like you were his ex-girlfriend, Ryan and I did date in the past. So there's this interview with Jennifer Lawrence where Jack Nicholson pops in and they have this interaction. So I'm going to play a clip of that now.
And then they had a lot of fun as well. Take a look. You looked completely shell-shocked when your name was announced.
And the Oscar goes to Jennifer Lawrence. That line is playable.
Well, yeah. I feel like I can't even remember it. That's just kind of an insane moment. And it was just really exciting. It was just really just shocking. I think that's the first time I think I've ever felt like actual shock.
We could see it. Oh, you got a fan here.
I was just trying to push. No politics,
Jack, no?
George. What about
If you want to talk
you're in
politics,
jail,
we can.
so it's such a beautiful job.
Thank
Don't
you.
be crushing.
Yeah, you're being really rude.
Good to see you.
I loved the movie.
Oh my god, thank you. I loved all your movies. Oh really? Do I look like a new girlfriend?
I thought about it.
Is he still here?
I'll be waiting.
Oh my god! I need a rear view mirror.
Well, I was going to ask you, what are you going to remember about tonight? I think it is. Had you met him before?
No. Hey! I know Jennifer Carter. She's really nice. Hi. Hi. Yeah, this is my life now. Hey Jack. Hey Jennifer. How are you?
So from her interaction, like Jack Nicholson saying, you look like an ex-girlfriend. And then she says, do I look like a new girlfriend? I wish I responded somehow in that manner to that person, like when they were saying, you come off like you were his ex-girlfriend. I wish I said in my response, do I come off like I could be his new girlfriend? I think it's funny. So I wish I responded that way. I didn't, but since I thought about it, I can include it now because I thought it would have been a good, witty response. But back to their conversation. This is what they said. Yeah. You can pause it and read it. More of our conversation. You could pause it and read it. I'm trying to get to the point about Ryan to clarify. More of our conversation. You can pause it and read it all. But here they're saying, like, is there a real reason that you'd recommend? Yeah. So she says, I don't know Ryan well. I know he's 45 and never been married, but desires that. I was going to try to hook him up with one of my friends. Is there a real reason that you'd recommend against that? So, one, I don't know if I've ever recommended anyone against that. I just don't like their question. It's implying that I've made reasons to recommend against Ryan, and now she's asking if there's a real reason. I don't think I've ever recommended against it, but is there a real reason I'd recommend against it? I wouldn't dissuade people from, but I do like my response here. If he did, it should be of no concern to you. As you have stated, people make mistakes, because she said that earlier about the church. People make mistakes and there's no perfect church. So then she was asking me, like, is there a real reason I'd recommend against that regarding Ryan? Well, it's like, if your mentality is like people make mistakes and there's no perfect church, well, regardless of what my reasons were, they shouldn't be a concern to this person. But, so the biggest issue with Ryan, I think, is the environment that he's in. I think if he has any sin issues, I think the environment is either a cause of them directly by their example, specifically those with authority over him, because we tend to imitate and do. It's like we take on the behavior of those in authority over us. If we respect them and we consider them as like mature, and they're like a leader, a religious leader, well, the sin that they have and the corruption that they have, if that pattern doesn't go unchecked, well, people imitate that. So I think the biggest issue with Ryan is his environment. Either he's taking on the corruption of those in authority over him or around him, or he's in an environment where he can't be as spiritually mature as he could be outside of that environment. So I included this passage in Luke 13, verses 6 through 9. And it talks about a fig tree wasn't bearing any fruit. And the caretakers, they want to cut it down. Why does it even use up the ground? And the response was, let it alone, sir, for this year also, until I dig around it and put in fertilizer. And if it bears fruit next year, fine. But if not, cut it down. So, you know, one reason why a person might not be bearing as much spiritual fruit as they could be is their environment, is their soil, is where they were planted. And it's like here, it's like, leave it alone. Like, don't cut it down, don't condemn it. Let's try digging around it and putting in, you know, fertilizer, things that will help grow and cultivate it and nurture it. And if it bears fruit next year, fine, but if not, cut it down. So I think the biggest issue with Ryan is his environment. But some minor, small issues with Ryan. I don't like the letters used with his name. I don't like the Y. I've written him a bunch of letters. I don't know if he's read any of them or all of them, but I don't like the Y. I don't like writing his, and it's just a me thing. I don't like, there's not a good way to write his name with those letters. I think it would be more fitting for him if he changed the Y to I and did like Ryan, but I know like typically that spelling is used for girls. I don't know if that bothers him. Or R-I-O-N, Ryan. I think for me, like that would be my, the issues that I would take with Ryan is just the form of the second letter in how he spells his name. If he could change that, that's like one area where it's like I would want him to change. Not so much who he is or issues he may or may not have, but if he could change the second letter of how he spells his name, that would remove any issues I have with him personally. Also, I think it's more fitting with like his middle name is Malcolm and his last name is Gromlovits, so I think like R-I-A-N or R-I-O-N. I just think it's more fitting with like the whole set, you know? Yeah. So I would make those changes. I've never seen his signature. I've only seen him write his name. So he has probably struggled with coming up with a good signature because, so my name is Rebecca, the first letter in my name is a capital R, and you can make it a cool signature because of the drop down with like the leg of the R. But if you have a Y as the second letter, well, the Y like crosses that and it interferes with it. So there's no good way to write Ryan in cursive in a way that's like visually appeasing or creative. So if he changed the Y to I, he could probably come up with some cool signature forms. And that's just how I think. I also think Caroline is like one of my favorite names to write. Because you have like the big C and then you have like A, but then like R can drop down and then you can do a little O, and then like the L, you can go up and down, L, and then like a small I, and then the N can drop down, and E. So it's just very balanced. It's very balanced from like top to bottom. Caroline is one of my favorite like names to write in cursive. Ryan with the Y, it's just not, there's no good way to write it that's visually appeasing. It's a huge turnoff. It's a big deal to me. The form of the second letter in his name. Those would be my issues with Ryan. And then I'm gonna include some clips about trees and growth. Because we have all these examples in creation, especially with trees. So what's true in the physical realm, you can make connections with spiritual principles as well. So I'm going to include some clips about trees and growth.
What can I do for you? Okay. You see that flower?
Yes, a garden metaphor. I love the garden metaphor. I just love it.
That flower was in a small pot in my living room, but it outgrew its surroundings, so I transplanted it here in the garden.
Seems like it's doing okay.
Oh, yes, it's flourishing. Now, when I pulled the flower out of the small pot in my living room, it resisted a little, you know. It tried to hang on by its roots. I had to force it out.
Because you thought it would do better out here. In the world, right?
No, because I thought if I left it there, it would stop growing.
Did you know that a tree has to grow in two directions at the same time? Did you know that?
A tree has to grow in two directions.
It's always growing in two directions at the same time. It's growing down and it's growing up. And what's interesting, if you could see the part of the tree that's under the ground, it looks very similar to the part of the tree that's above the ground. The root system is very similar to the fruit system.
Crazy, I never thought about that.
See what's happening? Look at, right, exactly. Look what's happening to your face right now.
I've seen millions of trees.
Right. And so something as common as a tree, but watch this. Here's what's interesting about a tree. The nature of a tree is that it is both gravitropic and phototropic. Now, you've never probably heard, maybe, have you ever heard of the word gravitropic before? Phototropic?
Never.
Okay. So gravitropic means it grows away from light and towards gravity. That's the root system. It's gravitropic in nature. So the seed goes in the ground, and then the tree starts growing down before it starts growing up. Now, here's what's interesting. When the seed is under the ground, it's dark under the ground, it's damp, and it has resistance. The root system has resistance. It has to push through the dirt to go down further, right? Well, once it breaks through the earth growing up, there's no more resistance. And the part of the tree that's above the earth grows towards light and away from gravity. So the tree is growing in two directions at the same time. Now, okay, how does that help me in my life though? That sounds really cool, right? Well, that is one of the most beautiful pictures of the way life works that you've ever seen, that I've ever seen. How? It's the work that you do in the dark when it's difficult and damp that makes the work that you do that everybody sees in the light work.
So back to the conversation. Here's more of what they said, more of what I said. You can pause it and read it. Another page, more of what they said, more of what I said. And I'm going to go through this more thoroughly in a part 2, so that's why if you want to like pause it and read it, you can. I just want to mention and make clarifications about what I said about Ryan. Third page, what they said, what I said. So here they asked, what counsel were you both given while dating? I didn't respond to them in the message, so I'm going to respond here about the counsel that we were given while we were dating. So she can see this video, and then if other people are interested, they can see that video. But, oh yeah, so to back up, Ryan, if you think I misrepresented you, please let me know. But I think I tend to speak accurately and precisely regarding situations. Being a woman, it's like sometimes you're in a situation and there's no winning. Because if you speak accurately to how the situation was and you describe it with a level of and you paint the picture with like accurately or for how like the situation is, well, if it's a crazy messed up situation, well, people are going to say you're emotional and you're exaggerating, you're dramatic. If I speak to the situation at the level of how fucked up that situation was, and like sometimes like that combination of letters, God uses expletives, and it's like sometimes people might understand like, oh, well, that's not a curse word, that, that combination of letters. I could see why people would avoid it. But at the same time, it's like, well, maybe God, everyone has a different path. So maybe the route that God has you on or what you've experienced so far, maybe it hasn't been that bad. But maybe for me, with the route that God has me on, it comes to like a conscience issue, of, accurately describing what it was that I experienced. And I've seen some fucked up shit, okay? I don't, if I use other language other than that, it comes to a point where it's like I'm lying because I'm downplaying it. But I feel like those words is the most truthful words to describe what it was that I went through. So my convictions are that those words are the words that I ought to use to describe that situation. And some people might not be able to understand that, and maybe I come across as like worldly or crude, or that my speech is unclean. I think people don't have a right understanding of what unclean speech is or what curse words are. And yeah, I don't use that language around everyone, but I think those are the best words to describe what it was that I went through. So I'm gonna use them. I've earned it. When you see some fucked up shit, when you experience that, you can say those words too. Yep, so describing Ryan, we did date in the past. During that time, I wasn't getting good counsel. I don't believe he was giving good counsel either. I'm not sure if his thinking has changed in any ways. Because let me back up. So they were asking about Ryan because they wanted to try to set their friend up with Ryan. So I don't think Ryan is like undateable or anything. So I suggested I'd pitch your friend to Ryan and allow them the opportunity to get to know each other. I don't know who Ryan is today, to some extent. And then more, do you think Ryan is too picky or has unrealistic expectations? We did date in the past. During that time, I wasn't getting good counsel. I don't believe he was either. I'm not sure if his thinking has changed in any ways regarding relationships. But I would be open to dating him again if he was willing to communicate about the past and acknowledge ways in which his treatment of me wasn't right. So they're asking how he has sinned against me, as if like that sin would make him a big walking red flag for any other woman that would be interested in him. But having experienced forms of Ryan's sin personally in the context of dating, I would be open to dating him again in the future if he was willing to communicate about the past and acknowledge ways in which his treatment of me wasn't right. So he's not, I don't think he's like a big walking red flag that other women should avoid. I myself wouldn't avoid him. So if that helps answer people's questions on what did he do? Was it so bad that he's like this toxic abuser towards women? I think he has some, at least in the past, maybe some misogynistic ways of thinking. But again, like it's the environment that he's in, that it's not conducive to maybe like a healthy relationship between men and women. I don't know, like the issues we had with dating, I don't know if that's like of himself or just the product of worldly counsel that he was, given, or faulty teaching that he received that produced that. So, yeah. So then they ask, what counsel were you both given while dating? But more on this. So, how long did you date? Was it dating or courting? Did he pursue you? So when they asked, like, did he pursue you? So he did initiate the conversation about officially dating, courting. I don't know if I would say he pursued me. So we had known each other for maybe like 3 years before officially dating or courting. And I always liked him as a person. I thought he was really interesting. As a person, his background, his education, where he grew up. He was from the South. I was from the South. He has his degree in mechanical engineering. I had my degree in mechanical engineering. So there was just a lot of like similarities, and I always just thought he was interesting. So I always was like chasing him around, trying to be near him. And that's not a secret. Everyone knew that. It was clearly seen by all, that I like naturally just kind of gravitated towards Ryan. We also worked together. He put in a lot of effort when I saw a job from Duke Energy, and he had worked at Duke Energy, so he helped me get the job, and the positions in that company were close, so he didn't have to exert forward motion in order to pursue me, is what I was trying to communicate. All he had to do was like turn his head, and there I was. It's not like he had to put in forward motion in order to get my attention or make himself visible to me. Yeah. I always liked him as a person and enjoyed being in his presence, so seeking him out was a common practice of mine. I was always pursuing him. At work, at church, in context of our friendship, brother and sister. And I think I was like romantically interested in him prior to, for a long time he was like team single, I'm never gonna get married. So I was always trying to like break down his walls. So he did initiate the conversation, but I wouldn't say like he pursued me. And then they said, I know it's hard to find a good person. I'm embarrassed to be going through my second divorce, but 45 and never even engaged, I feel sorry for him. It's not because women weren't wanting to marry him. Yeah, he's 45. He doesn't look 45 to me. I know he's in really good shape and he's really strong and healthy and fit for a 45-year-old. So I wouldn't say I feel sorry for him. So I responded, I'm not sure how I would describe it. I want him to be happy, but single is better than marriage to the wrong person. So 45, never been engaged, he has no baby mamas, no previous broken off engagements or broken off marriages. He has no covenant that he's been unfaithful to or broken promises towards a woman. So I don't know why this person views it that way. 45 and never even engaged. I feel sorry for him. I think he's seated in a good position. I wouldn't feel sorry for him. But to answer their question, what counsel were you both given while dating? So Mark gave counsel to Ryan that once we started courting, our plan was to sit together in the sanctuary, and Mark had counseled Ryan not to sit together, that it'd be best if we didn't sit together in the sanctuary. And his reason was to guard my heart. You want to guard my heart, you want to keep some distance. If it ends, you don't want everyone in the church knowing that you guys dated, because then it could make it awkward. You want to kind of keep knowledge of the relationship at a minimum, so that if it doesn't work out, it's not like you have to go around telling everyone that you broke up and why. So that was Mark's counsel to Ryan, that we shouldn't sit together in the sanctuary. For context, I was 26 and I was saved when I was 23. Prior to 23, I was in multiple relationships, and even from 23 to 26, I was in multiple relationships, as a Christian. So I had gone through like emotional attachment and then breakup. So I had experienced that a few times. So it's not like I had this unbroken heart that needed to be guarded and protected, and this delicate thing. I had gone through like that experience a few times, and it's like if I made it past like those breakups, I'll be okay making it through another one. And I know that Mark gave this counsel to Ryan because Ryan told me we decided that we were going to sit together, and then Ryan changed his mind once Mark spoke to him, and I was disappointed because I was highly looking forward to that. And I saw it as a bad thing, and then Ryan was like, this should be a good thing. You should see this as a positive thing, at least to my account, that I'm willing to change a decision upon receiving wise counsel. It's not like I'm self-willed, once I receive counsel that I think is wise, I'm willing to change my mind and change my decision. So he's like, you should see this as a good thing. Yeah, I was thrilled, Ryan. I thought it was great. Also, I think that's worldly wisdom. Like, don't sit together, to guard my heart. Again, this isn't like exposing a secret or new news. My heart at that time, there was no guarding it. It was already like fixed on Ryan, and if the relationship doesn't work out, I was gonna be a wreck. It was gonna ruin me. It was gonna destroy me. That was already a given. There was no guarding my heart at that point. It was already like heavily invested in this man, and if the relationship didn't work out, it was gonna destroy me. And then when the relation didn't, it did destroy me. So there was no guarding my heart. And that's not new news. Anyone who was around me during that time, prior to that time, that was like, I feel like that was common knowledge shared among all, that I was heavily emotionally invested in this man, even prior to him expressing desires to court. And there was no guarding that. So that's another reason why I think it was worldly wisdom. Yeah, more counsel that we were given. So Mark gave counsel to me. So this was like at the end of the relationship. It was just, it didn't seem like we were working through issues, like things were getting resolved. Like we were one mind on certain things. It just seemed like there was a disconnect and distance. It seemed like during the relationship, we were just like growing farther apart instead of growing in unity and like-mindedness. It was like just all of these, it seemed like we were getting farther apart and things weren't being resolved. And I kind of finally reached my breaking point, and I called Mark. I remember I was leaving Michael's, and the conversation started when I was in the parking lot. I don't remember what I was getting at Michael's, but I was asking Mark, I'm like, this is not working. I'm at like my breaking point. Things aren't getting resolved. And, just telling Mark about like where I was at with the relationship, and I didn't know like what was going on, how to fix it, what to do. And in that conversation, he was asking me like, oh, well, I was like, he just seemed, I was saying like, right, Ryan seems distant, uninterested, like just detached. It doesn't seem like he wants to be in it, but maybe he's like forcing himself to be in it because he doesn't have a good reason to get out of it. So Mark was asking me, does he ever reach out? Does he ever like reach out to hold your hand? Does he ever, initiate contact? Does he ever put his arm around you, pull you in close? Does he ever do any of those things? And when he was asking those questions, it was like breaking my heart. I'm like, no, like Ryan doesn't do any of those things. He doesn't like pursue me in that way. He doesn't, pursue those forms of companionship. And it's like by, Mark, these were the questions Mark was asking. And like by answering no, it led me to believe like, yeah, this relationship, it wasn't, it was like a no-go. Like these were indications like the relationship shouldn't continue, that Ryan wasn't interested. Yep, so those were the questions that Mark asked me to gauge the status of Ryan in the relationship. And when I had answered no, well, by the end of the conversation, by the end of that conversation with Mark, I was left with the impression that the relationship ought to end. So with that conversation with Mark and him asking those questions, by the end of it, I was led with the conclusion. I was like, okay, yeah, I need to end this. The relationship needs to end. If this is where Ryan's at, then it shouldn't progress. If this is the status of the relationship, if this is the status of Ryan, then it shouldn't be moving forward if Ryan's heart isn't in it. By evidence of him not reaching out to hold my hand or put his arm around me. But Mark, you counseled him to keep his distance. So if you're counseling him that we shouldn't sit next together in like close physical proximity, well, maybe explicitly or implicitly, like with that counsel, it's like, yeah, he probably shouldn't hold my hand or put his arm around me. If you counseled him to keep physical distance from me and not sit next to me in the sanctuary, well, you know, off branches of that counsel is don't hold her hand. Don't be physically close in that way. Don't put your arm around her and pull her in close. Don't be physically close in that way. So it seemed like double-minded counsel. I'm not sure like if there are specifics that, you know, Mark would say like, yeah, it's, you know, best not to hold her hand. It's best not to be, you know, physically intimate in small ways like this during the courtship phase. And that's why he didn't do those things. But he used those questions and the lack of that behavior as kind of like to lead me with the impression of like, yeah, because of those reasons, you know, the relationship shouldn't end. So that's why technically, yeah, I did end the relationship, but it was kind of because of Mark's counsel. And generally that was kind of like the tone of courtship and dating that time, you know, during that time. So outside of like Mark's counsel, it was kind of like a widely held belief that it was wise to not hold hands or put your arm around someone. So even if it wasn't directly because of Mark's counsel, well, Ryan might have not have been doing those things because of the majority view of what courtship and dating was during that time. Yep, so that was counsel that was given to me from Mark. So also I received counsel from Michael. This was after we broke up, and once we broke up, I think we were still, shortly after the relationship ended, things felt unsettled and we were considering getting back together. So Michael was telling me, and we didn't know, like, do we get back together? Do we not get back together? I think Ryan was wrestling with it also. And Michael was telling me that Ryan shouldn't be considering whether or not he wants to ask you to date again. He should be considering whether or not he wants to ask you to marry him. Like, the question shouldn't be, do we date again? Ryan should be asking himself, do I want to marry her? Do I ask her to marry me? Instead of, do I ask her to date again? He should be asking, do I ask her to marry me? And the reason behind that is because he said the purpose of dating is to gain knowledge of the other person so that you can decide if you want to marry them. And he stated that Ryan knows enough about me to make a decision on whether or not he wants to marry me. So he gave me the counsel, if Ryan asks you to date again, I would answer him no. He should be asking you to marry him. So that was like more counsel that I was given from Michael, that, Ryan shouldn't be asking me to date again, that it was kind of like selfish and an indicator of like being uncommitted. He shouldn't be asking me to date again. He should be asking me, if anything, he should be asking me to marry him. But that counsel's stupid because, other counsel we were given, like during the relationship, we were counseled to be guarded with our thoughts, feelings, and affections. So, he's making the claim that Ryan should know enough about me to make a decision of whether or not he wants to marry me. Well, we were counseled to not share certain things about how we felt, how we thought, what our affections were. We were counseled to be guarded and not be so open, not disclose too much. So to say like he should have enough knowledge, well, you told me not to share knowledge. Yeah. So that was back in, I think we started dating in 2016, 10 years ago. Old news. So when we broke up in 2017, well, in 2017, Ryan was a man with no remarkable gifts of the Spirit. I don't know if that's the right word to describe it. So his knowledge about me was limited to what I had revealed about myself. So it's not like he had like prophetic gifts of the Spirit where he could know more about me through like divine guidance and private revelation from God. His knowledge about me was limited to what I shared with him. So if I wasn't sharing certain things with him, well, he's not able to possess it. He can only possess knowledge of me if I give knowledge of myself to him. So to make the claim like Ryan should have enough knowledge about me, he only has what I gave to him. It's not like he had prophetic gifts of the Spirit where it's like he could see inside my soul and without me like revealing certain things about myself. So I think that was stupid counsel, again, from Michael, that we shouldn't, he shouldn't be asking whether or not we date again. He should be asking like, do I want to marry her? And it goes both ways. Like, it's hard to say, do I know Ryan well? I think of all people we were friends for a period of time. We were co-workers for a period of time. We've been in church for a period of time. I feel like of all people, I might have like the basis to say I know the most about Ryan, but I feel like there's not a lot that I do know. I only know like what I've observed observed from him or heard from him in those contexts, but it's still the knowledge that I have about Ryan is pretty limited. I might know more about Ryan than other people because of interacting with him in different contexts, but at the same time there's a sense where I feel like I don't know. There's a lot I don't know about Ryan, so I can't say like, I don't know if I can make the claim like I know him really well or not. There's a lot I don't know. I think there's a lot he keeps guarded and hidden. So later, we didn't end up dating again or anything. It just kind of fell flat. And then I came to Mark, and so this is what I said to Mark. I was like, this is destroying me. Being separate from Ryan. And I was telling him, like, when I consider determining God's will in marriage, so that was a book we went through during the time that we were dating. It was about discerning the will of God. I think it's called I was going to say According to Plan, but I don't think that's it. It was about how to determine the will of God. And it's like, when we were dating, it's like trying to determine, is marriage God's will for us? And during that time, what was evident to me is that, and I've stated in previous videos, like, well, when Ryan administers the word, either privately or publicly, it's effectual. So it's like trying to discern, like, is Ryan as a husband God's will for me in my life? Well, objectively, like, if I'm looking for, like, if his role is to administer the word of God and to, like, be a spiritual leader, and render care in that way, well, when he does that, God makes it effectual, more than like other people. There's like a heightened sense where it's like his preaching, his teaching, our conversations, talking about spiritual matters. There was like an added blessing with Ryan versus other people. I would remember things. yeah, it's not like it would go in one ear or out the other. It's like I would remember a lot of things and apply them, and they were weighty and they were meaningful and they impacted my heart and my spirit, and they shaped and formed me. I was being sanctified. You know, God was sanctifying me through His Word, through Ryan's administration of it. So, but he also wanted to be a pastor. So then I'm just like, is it just like pastoral gifts, or is it? Anyway, so I went to Mark and I was like, this is destroying me. When I consider marriage, there's like all these things. It's like hard for me to like not think that like this is God's will for my life. And there was also like a lot of counsel of like, don't be moved by your emotions. The subjective things. It was more of just like, you should make decisions based off objectives, and like the feelings were left out of it. It's like, you don't want to be led astray by your emotions. You don't want to be emotionally led. But with Ryan, there was like a very like heightened sense of emotions like with that relationship. So it was really hard for me to like try and reconcile, where it's like I had this emotional movement towards him, attachment to him, and it's like seeing like the subjective and the objective. It's like these indicators. It's like, this is destroying me. It's like it's hard for me to see how this is not God's will. So I went to Mark and I was like crying, puddle of mud, really just a freaking mess, saying all these things to him. And then Mark asked me, did you tell this to him? And I said, no, I haven't shared this with him. And it's like, well, I would think his counsel would be like, oh, well, you should tell him. Maybe he feels the same way. But his counsel was basically, well, I know he vacillated a lot on whether or not to attempt dating again. So that was other counsel that I got from Mark that I thought was kind of dumb. I think I should have shared those things with Ryan. So since then, I wrote these things and letters to him about the past. But again, this is just talking about counsel that we received. So I don't think that was good counsel from Mark or from other people, where it's like, don't share your thoughts, don't share your feelings, don't share your affections during the courtship phase. Reserve all of those until after marriage. I think I should have shared my thoughts and feelings and affections, especially like regarding this, to Ryan in the past when we were dating. What I really think was going on. So in hindsight, Mark and Michael are both highly manipulative and controlling, and they're both highly envious and jealous, and they are both highly selfishly ambitious, wanting to build their own name, their own kingdom, their own glory, and they are highly lustful towards power and positions of authority and control. So I think, and then here I have like Ecclesiastes, if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. I think there was like some manipulation tactics that I think anyone objectively, if they considered who I was and who Ryan was and his desires to be a pastor, because their view of that position of authority, it's like, well, if you have enough intellect, that qualifies you to hold that position. And the character qualifications, those are just stepping stones until you get the position. But what qualifies you is your knowledge and your teaching. And then everything else is like, well, there's no perfect pastor. So in their view, I think it's like, well, whoever knows the most, they have the most power. Who's ever, if you know the most, if you have the best theology, who's ever superior regarding their intellect and knowledge, well, that makes them more powerful, and that warrants them to be in a higher position of power or position of authority. So regardless of ways in which I may or may not be a good or wretched wife, I think objectively, if Ryan and I were married based off of my intellect and love of theology and discussing these things, if we were married, I think I would have been a great asset to him and his intellect and his knowledge, and I think I would have been a good resource, regardless of all the other ways in which someone might be a good wife or an evil wife. At least in regards to knowledge and theology and intellect, I would have been a great help to him with those things. And again, I think these people, they want to help people, but they never want someone to surpass them. So, and I think Ryan has, teaching gifts. And I think if we were married, that would have been a real threat of, if those two get together, one, we're not going to be able to control either one. And two, it's like, well, eventually Ryan's going to be greater than all of us, because our wives aren't like her. So if we can't have her, he can't have her either. If our wives don't like talking about theology 24/7 and G.K. Beale and, biblical theology and John Owen, well, we don't want Ryan to have a wife that talks about those things also. Yeah, I think generally these men in positions of power, they want people to grow, but never get close to their level, or definitely not surpass their level, because then, well, that means that they have greater authority and power. And it's like, well, because they love power and authority, they want to keep everyone underneath them. So if someone has gifts, and it's like, yeah, envy, jealousy, it becomes a threat. And then you get like acts of violence where it's like they try to destroy certain things. Instead of them doing the work and growing also, it's like, no, let's just destroy those who are greater than us. Because that will, we can keep our position of power, we'll keep our authority. But the thing is, when power is given to serve, it's to build others, it's to grow others. But it's like they use their power to control, manipulate, domineer, for their own glory, for the praise and respect of men. It's like, well, if you have a right view of power and the use of power, it doesn't matter who's more powerful. It wouldn't bother you that people are greater in power and strength, because that power is to serve you. So, a lot of wrong thinking in that environment. So yeah, hindsight, considering what I've seen, I've experienced those men in different contexts, and it kind of paints a broader picture of who they are and what their character is like. So knowing that about them now, it hindsight's 20/20. It adds more color with, counsel that we were given in the past. Yep. So here's more of the conversation, what they said, how I responded. More on the conversation, what they said, how I responded. You can pause it and read it, and I'm going to have a part 2 that kind of walks through it more thoroughly. But so with that kind of brings us to the end of part 1 to clarify about Ryan Gromlovits regarding, insinuations I may have made about him in regard, with past videos about how he sinned against me, or when he didn't help me, or things like that. I hope that gives clarity. There's a lot I don't know about Ryan, so you should get to know him, I guess, and be your own judge of who you think he is. So, yep, that ends part 1. Okay.